Hello, I'm Tina Jeckel, a guitarist from Berlin. Today I'm going to talk about one blues chorus Peter Bernstein is playing in the Nigran Jazzfestival. It's a masterclass. I'm going to link to that masterclass below in the descriptions. And that blues chorus starts at 10 minutes 40 seconds. That video starts with him playing Sandu with another guitarist. Sandu is a blues in E flat. So we're just going to have a look what he's doing there and how we can learn from it and use it for own accompaniment. By the way, I have a free transcription on my website tinajeckel.com. You can go there and download it for free. Maybe it's a little bit easier to follow along. Also, I'm suggesting that you're writing down a typical blues in E flat, a typical jazz blues, like I'm going to show you here. You can see that's like most common way to play a jazz blues. So you can compare that jazz blues to the chords Peter Bernstein is playing. I heard somewhere that he said he is not playing chords. We're not going so deep today, so let's start with the first two bars. He's playing a B flat minor 7, A7, resolving to the A flat sus4. So if we start with the end of that chordal phrase, he ends on that A flat 7. So in the second bar of an E flat blues, you would have an A flat chord, and many musicians, and there are many examples of compositions as well, turn dominant 7th chord into sus chords. They sound pretty cool, and you also can play a sus chord in where you find a 4 and a 3 in that chord as well. So think about that option, and if you're thinking about the destination A flat sus 4, then you can think that those two chords he's playing in the start of the chorus, they're just a 2-5 going to A flat sus 4. So it would be 2. Then the tritonus substitute of the E flat would be the A, resolving to A flat sus 4. One thing that I find very compelling about Peter Bernstein's comping is that it's always moving forward. It's always having a lot of forward motion rhythmically, but also harmonically. We could also think, because he's talking in length about the fact that Sandu is in E flat and our lowest possible note on the guitar is the E flat. That's a pretty high note, and when he's accompanying the other guitar player, he's also using the B pedal a lot, just to stay lower than the E flat, I guess. So you could also think about that chord as an E flat sus 4 9 with a B flat in the bass. So that's not what I'm hearing here, but it's also a sort of an explanation for that chord. Then moving on, if you think about those two chords, A flat sus 4 going to A flat 7 flat 9, it's good to think about that A flat sus 4 as an E flat minor as well, you know. So you could switch an E flat minor for an A flat 7 sus 4 and the other way around. So it's really like a 2-5 again, E flat minor, A flat, which would normally go to D flat, right? And in this case as well, A flat. And he's going sort of to D flat, at least here in the top note. And then he's playing this G half diminished. If we play it in another inversion as a drop 2 chord, for example, up here, you know, and then you think about the E flat, then it's a very commonly used substitute for an E flat 7 chord. You know, you can use half diminished chords in a lot of different ways with different roots. This is one of it. And another thing that I want to emphasize is that he's also really talking a lot about harmonizing a bass line. So if we would have a look or only listen to the bass line in those first bars, it would be like chromatically going downwards, totally logic, and then he's going back up. So that's another way of thinking it. Maybe he is listening strongly to the bass note and just harmonizing it that way. And then in bar 3 and 4, he does the exact same thing, just plays one other chord, the B flat minor, but then it's actually again B flat minor 7, A7, tritone substitute, leading to the 4 again, and the 4 again is a sus4 chord. And that B minor chord here, going to the B flat minor. You can say it's a chromatic approach, a chord. Of course, you could also think, okay, what is the 2-5 in this case? Yes, and then that would be E7, and the tritone substitute would be the B flat, and then it would be B flat, E flat, going to A flat sus4. So it's just disguised. It's like a cycle of dominant seventh chords. Sometimes you're only using the 2, sometimes you're using the 5 chord, but you can also use the tritone of each dominant seventh chord, but you can also use the 2 chord of the tritone substitute, and that's what's happening here. So bar 4 and 5 is very beautiful. You can think about it as a 1-5-1, or like what many people do, they lead up to each next chord in the next bar with a little secondary dominant, a 5 chord going to the next chord. And one thing that's really beautiful here is that voice leading. Sort of all the voices move parallel back and forth. I really like that. So in bar 7, again, we have that B flat minor 7 chord, or that E flat sus4 9 chord with the B flat in the bass, and it's just approached with a diminished chord. So if you have a look at a normal jazz blues, you can see that diminished chord in the 6 bars. I'm sure you have seen it before. Think about this chord, we could think about it as an E flat sus4 with a B flat in the bass, and this chord would just be like a diminished chord, and in the typical function of a diminished chord, that is a suspended chord for the 1 chord. So for example, if you would have an E flat major chord, you could play this, a diminished chord with a major 7, and then resolve it. Or in C it would be like C diminished. Or for example in Corcovado you have it as well. Suspending the tonic for a moment, but then you're landing on the tonic. And if you look at this chord, maybe you think about it like this. You see one of the notes is an E flat, and so you can think about it as an E flat diminished chord. Very much like that Count Basie ending that you probably know. So if you would be in the key of C major, then it would be D minor, C diminished, resolving to C6. So here we have it. It's really like C diminished, same root as the tonic. And while I have been editing this video, I thought this might be a valid explanation as well. The diminished would just be like substitute for a dominant seventh. Maybe that's even the easiest way to think about it. The next 4 chords are just like a cycle of dominant seventh chords that are resolving into an F7, not into an F minor 7, that would be typical in that bar, but he's resolving it into an F7. And that A flat 7, sharp 11, you guessed it, it's a tritone substitute. And if you look at like this, it's D7, G7, C7. So it's just like back cycling. The destination is the F7, and he's just using those chords to get there. And another thing that I want to point out is what I really like, and I don't see a lot of guitarists doing that, is that he's sometimes playing the top note on the G string, but sometimes on the B string. For example, like in the first bars. That's the melody of the top note, right? That's beautiful. And it's very easily achieved if you just skip the B string. So simple, I never think about it actually. Then again he plays those two beautiful voicings that we already met in bar 4 and 5, and it's nothing else again like the B7 sus4 acts as a 5 to the B flat 7 sus4, but it's a tritone substitute and it just adds some forward motion again. And I think what we can learn from it is you could also play the tritone substitute from a chord that you just played, like the F7. Now I play the tritone substitute. And then we're going to read the B flat, which is the typical chord in that bar of an E flat blues. But in this case, again, he's just playing a sus chord. And then he's resolving it actually a lot like in bar 7. But like this. So I think about this again. So it's again a diminished chord on the same root note as a tonic, resolving to E flat 6. So if you would analyze it in relationship to an E flat, it would be E flat diminished and E flat 6. And then he's just jumping into the last chords. So he's starting another cycle of dominant 7th chords. I like to think about the place where he started. So we are in E flat. He's starting with the G7. The G7 is on the 3rd degree. Okay, so he's playing G7, F sharp, again tritone substitute. You could also be thinking C7, F7. Then again playing the tritone substitute. That's the same thing again, and then he's approaching the first chord of the chorus like this. So he says, just play something in the low register, simple and repetitive. So he's playing a very repetitive rhythm. He's either playing on the 1 and 3 or on the 1, 3, 4, and so he's anticipating the next 4 and then moves on to the next 3. So the rhythm is very clear. And if you have a look at all the stuff that we just discussed now, you'll see that he's actually using same chord shapes and same ideas over and over again. Just like for myself, there are lots of ideas I would never use. For example, I would for sure start an E flat blues probably with this chord. Take a look for yourself, experiment with it, and don't forget that you can also use all those chords in your solo. So for example, you could try to outline those chords in a line with arpeggios, even if the other person you're playing with doesn't necessarily play those chords. I think they still would work out fine, because there's so much forward motion, and as long as you resolve it, everything's fine. So that's it for today. I hope I could help you. Please let me know if you have any questions below in the comments, even to other parts of the videos. I will do my best to figure it out, and I see you next week. Bye!